witches, how you doing today? We're back with another video, and as you can see, I'm not in my usual cluttered little office. I thought maybe today we could go foraging together. This video was partly inspired by Justin, the Witch of Enchantment, who just recently did his 6 most used herbs, which I thought was really interesting to share about sort of, you know, the different herbs and stuff that you might use. And by my circumstances, I am out camping, which means I'm in the great outdoors, which means I am always foraging. Even when I'm not actually harvesting, I've always got an eye out looking at what's going on around me. So today I'm not actually going to harvest anything, but I thought let's go for a walk. Let's check out what's going on around and see what we can find. And maybe we'll talk about some magical correspondences. So before we get into it, for those of you who are new around here, my name is Taya. Welcome to the channel. We talk about all things witchcraft. And for those of you who are returning viewers, maybe coming in from another video, welcome back. Thank you so much for the support. It's very much appreciated. And all of you, please consider subscribing. Now, before we get started, I do have a couple things I want to go over. The first thing is, if you are interested in foraging, especially in an urban context, so not like today where we're out in the countryside, but actually urban foraging in and around the city, you might be interested in a class I have coming up on Wednesday, July 20th. That's 2 weeks from the date this video is posted. It is online. Anybody from anywhere is welcome to join us. Just go to etwguild.com under classes and you will find urban foraging there. It is probably an hour and a half class, and yeah, it's online via Zoom, so come and join us and learn a little bit about urban foraging. Now, the other thing I need to preface this video with is that I don't really plan my videos out in advance. I wait till the day of and see how the day takes me, so to speak. So because I'm out camping, I don't have any of my notes or books on, you know, the uses of any of the plants we're going to find today. So, all right, I'm just going to adjust there. So typically what I'll do is I like to find a plant and then I look up its medicinal uses. So like chamomile is good for sleep, which makes me think of deep sleep and dreams and maybe prophetic dreams, right? I kind of do a little bit of a ramble that way. And then I also like to look up the indigenous uses of plants, because the indigenous people here in North America have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years working with the plants in our, in the natural surroundings here. And so they have tons of amazing lore. And quite often you'll find between different tribes is that they used the same kind of plants for the same medicinal uses, for cooking purposes, for magical or spiritual uses. So that's always interesting to kind of look up the medicinal and the indigenous uses of a plant, and then you get a really good sense of some very logical correspondences for them. And then what I do is I look up magical correspondences for that plant. And I do that research and look for what corresponds closely with my non-magical research. So today I don't have access to any of my books or my notes, so all I've done is a quick search on Google. Ooh, that ant just bit me. Is a search on Google for magical uses of whatever we're looking at. And so what I'm presenting here is going to be obviously a lot broader than what I might typically use in my personal practice. So yeah, I just thought I'd kind of preface it with that, like it was just a general Google search to find the magical properties of whatever we're looking at. So without further ado, let's start walking and see what we can find next. All right, we're here with a bit of a 2-4. We've got some clover and dandelion. So to start with the clover, it is obviously for luck and good fortune, especially if you find a 4-leaf clover, but I think that translates onto just the general 3-leaf clover as well. Clover is also good for enhancing psychic powers and detecting spirits, and it repels snakes, both literally and figuratively. So like a literal snake repellent, but also figuratively, like you have that person in your life who's a bit of a snake and you want to repel them, use some clover in your charm. It's also good for general protection, when it's worn on your person, or you can dry it in bundles and leave it around your house. And when we speak of the flower, it's considered a fairy flower. So not only does it sort of help you see the fairies better, but it actually attracts them and makes them easier to work with. And in general, clover is also really good for prosperity. So it's a little bit about clover, but we also have here a dandelion, and this is just a singular dandelion because basically most of the dandelions have gone to seed now, but I just wanted to show you guys one nice big bright yellow dandelion. Dandelion is good for sun magic, if you want to infuse some solar energy into your working. It is good for creativity and inspiration, hope and new beginnings. It also speaks to bravery and courage and confidence because dandelion comes from the root dent de lion, which means lion's tooth in French. So that brings in that bravery and courage. The seeds, we all know, right? You get, when they go to seed, you blow on the seeds and they spread out and take your wishes. You make a wish and it spreads your wish. The leaves and roots are good for insight and clarity. In fact, you can make them into a tea that you would drink before maybe doing divination for insight and clarity. And a little bit of personal gnosis on this one, but when you look at the roots, it's a deep taproot. And if you've ever had to weed dandelions, you know you have to get that whole root out, because if you even just leave a little bit, it grows back again. And so I find adding a little bit of dandelion root is good for that really deep spell work that you want to be anchored and strong. And right, should they sort of try to brush it off, if they don't brush it off entirely, just a little bit of that spell remains, it'll grow again to full fruition. So that's a little bit about clover and dandelion, and we'll continue on and see what we find next. All right, friends, how about some Alberta wild roses? I love these roses. They are the official flower of my province, Alberta, so they're Alberta wild roses. But just speaking of wild roses in general, they represent life force and they are the protectors of the dead. They are related to survival and vitality, love and passion. How about divination? I think especially if you took like the rose hips at the end of the season and made them into a tea, right? Maybe a little bit of that insight for some divination. They are for protection from the unseen. They are for attracting love and passion and attracting spirits. And again, with their protecting of the dead, right? Especially I imagine spirits of the dead. And they are related to mystery and enchantment. Now, roses just aren't all goodness, right? They are also excellent for hexing because they have thorns. So especially when you combine with blood magic, you can make some very powerful curses and hexes using rose thorns. So yeah, I love this little grove here with all these beautiful roses. And that's a little bit about the wild rose. Let's see what we can find next. So I found another one of my favorite plant herbs that you can kind of find out and about. It's called vetch. And I can't find a lot on the magical uses of vetch. Like, you know what I mean? When you look up at the plant sites that are like, use this for this, use this for this. Vetch commonly isn't really listed, But you can see it here, it's got these beautiful purple flowers on it. Now typically they will actually make a flower about this long that's covered in these little sort of nodules of purple flower. It's kind of the end of the season here, so you can't really see a lot of it, but here's one of the flowers up close. But it's typically like a whole thing of them. Anyways, love these flowers, this plant in general. So vetch, I use it for attracting and holding. So if you look at it, and I know it's kind of hard to see here, but it's actually like a little vine. And so like I'm trying to separate it out from the crabgrass that it's growing with here, but it's all like wound around it. It's got these little tiny, you know, vine things that come out of it to stick onto things, and it climbs up all the other plants around it to sort of grow upwards. Indigenous uses, which I was able to find, it is used for life medicine and for love medicine by a number of different indigenous tribes. And the roots were used as a good luck charm when gambling. So again, it's a common weed in my area, but it's not commonly mentioned in magical correspondence lists, but I do really like using it for magic, especially that attracting and holding on to something with those little creepy vines, or if you're doing maybe a little bit of hexing work and you really want it to stick, you want it to like reach out and wrap its tendrils around somebody, add a little bit of vetch in to help with that. Yeah, so that's vetch. Let's carry on and see what we find next. So now I've managed to find a ton of horsetail. It's this kind of, you can see it here, it's very dry feeling, and it's got these like long tendrils on it, if you will. And when it goes, it also tends to put out, I think this is the female, and then there's a male version where it puts up like an actual, like a tuberous little stick. Anyways, horsetail. Good for strengthening boundaries, making commitments and vows stick firm. Fertility, they say you can dry it and hang it up over the marital bed for fertility. It is good for bone healing and anti-aging, and for snake charming. I don't know how it works, but it said you would use it to make a flute, so I'm assuming it would be more that tuberous shoot that comes, and you would make a flute and play that flute out of horsetail to charm a snake. Kind of interesting. So that's horsetail. Yeah. Horsetail. All right, you witches, that brings us to the end of our foraging adventure. I'm back at my trailer. Basically, I was filming away and my battery on my phone just about died. So I'll do my best to cobble together all of the videos from today, and hopefully we've had a good time watching and hanging out and doing some foraging. Unfortunately, I did have a segment on crabgrass, also known as witch's grass or quack grass, and for some reason my phone managed to lose the video. I'm not sure how that happened. So we are down to just 5 of the plants that I like to forage for around the campsite. So yeah, hopefully you found that interesting. Do you forage? Do you do this kind of thing? Are you one of those people like me who, whenever you're walking, you sort of always got an eye out for the good stuff? Yeah, leave us a comment, let us know. And otherwise, yeah, we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks so much, you guys.